Hi, everybody. Welcome to or back to the Dennis Prager Show. It's an honor to have Dr. Ben Carson on the line. We have spoken in the past. It's been a while, and his life has certainly changed. I'll ask him if he thinks it's for the better in a moment. I should also note to you that he has a fascinating autobiography, really an idea autobiography, A More Perfect Union. What we the people can do to reclaim our constitutional liberties. So it's really his thoughts. It's not his life story. It is his thoughts on what we can do. It's very, very worth reading. It is up at DennisPrager.com. Ben Carson, welcome back to my show.
Thank you. It's great to be back with you again.
Thank you. So I sort of tongue-in-cheek said he's a different man than when we spoke. It must have been over a year ago. And I'm curious. I'm a big one on the issue of happiness. I wrote a book on it. I do a show on it each week. Are you a happier man today than 2 years ago?
Well, let me put it this way. I am very delighted to be involved in a process where the people of America are awakening and recognizing that their rightful place is at the pinnacle of power in our society, with the government there to facilitate life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not to rule in every aspect of our lives.
Right. So it gives you a certain peace of mind to be part of this process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do believe that. I think one of the many good things that can be said about you, even by people who differ with you, is that you mean it. This is not an ego pursuit. This is not a hobby. I'm sorry?
I said not by any stretch of the imagination.
Yes, no, I do. I 100% do believe that, and I think that sincerity is part of your appeal. How would you characterize your appeal, and are you surprised?
Well, I think people are looking for some honesty and some integrity. And, the fact that I'm not a polished politician, I don't ever want to be a polished politician. I'm from among the folks where we just talk about what we believe and don't have to spend hours polishing it and saying, how does it sound to this group and to this demographic, and how will the media interpret it? To me, that's a bunch of crap. And, we have such real problems to deal with. And if we get waylaid at dealing with how does this sound and how will this be perceived, I don't know how we ever get to the solutions.
I have spent my life, and I'm just juxtaposing for the sake of this question, I've spent my life thinking through issues. That's what I get paid to do. It's what my books are on, my show is on, etc. You have spent your life in neurosurgery. So you could not possibly have spent the same time, obviously, as I have, and I'm just an example, in this pursuit. When did you formulate your ideas, given the fact that you had to be so involved in medicine?
Well, interestingly enough, I've been formulating ideas for decades. I've been a public speaker for decades. I've been writing books for decades. So even though I was an extraordinarily busy neurosurgeon, there were many other aspects of my life. 18 years on the board of Kellogg Company, 16 years on Costco, chairman of the board of Vaccinogen, starting a national nonprofit, getting involved in the whole educational system across the country. So, although a lot of people think that my entire life has been as a surgeon in the operating room, there's multiple other aspects that have led me to a knowledge of many, many areas and to an interest in many areas.
Let me ask you some of the tougher issues that have arisen, and I ask them as one who is a great admirer of yours. As soon as you made your comment about not being able to vote, and if I have it wrong, obviously correct me, for a Muslim American for president, I said, I wish he would have said, because Dennis, would vote for a Muslim, and I gave Zuhdi Jasser. I don't know if you're familiar with the gentleman, but he's a terrific American, and he wants to profoundly reformulate or reform much of Islam, but he's a religious Muslim. He fasts on Ramadan, but he's in the U.S. Navy. He's a doctor like yourself. And I could vote for him in a nanosecond because I know of his love of this country and of its values. So do you wish you just would have said all of your explanations were terrific, but that, yes, the issue isn't whether someone is a Muslim, it's whether the person wants Sharia to be the law of a society.
And actually, if you go back and listen to the whole interview, I said, before the question about the Muslim, I said anybody, regardless of their religious backgrounds or beliefs, who's willing to accept American values and place our Constitution above their belief system would be acceptable. And then the question was asked, well, what about a Muslim? As the implication of the question being that they didn't fit into that category. And the reason that they wouldn't fit into that category would obviously be that they weren't willing to do all the things that I had just suggested. And of course, anybody who isn't willing to do that, be they Muslim, be they Christian, be they anything, they would not be somebody I would advocate for.
Right. So for the record then, you could imagine voting for a Muslim for president.
Of course. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I think that's important. Okay. Good. Now to the latest, your comments on the Oregon shootings here. You said I would not just stand there and let him shoot me. I would say, hey guys, everybody attack him. He may shoot me, but he can't get us all. So are you, and I'm not trying to catch you on an insensitivity. I know you're sensitive. But are you saying that ideally you wish people in that circumstances would rush the shooter and not do what they are taught to do, go under a desk or whatever?
Well, of course, the question was asked, what would you do if you were standing there and the shooter was pointing a gun at you and asking you if you were a Christian? You can't leave that part out because that puts the answer into perspective. Of course I have great sympathy for the people who lost their lives and for their families. That's not an issue. But what would I do? I wouldn't just stand there and let them shoot me. That's my point.
Okay, so that context is lost in the New York Times piece on you.
Of course, because they don't put the real question in there because that doesn't fit their agenda.
It's pain. Look, don't start me with the New York Times, but even within the context of their corrupting news for their agenda, this is a scandal because it was not clear in my reading, and I think I read it twice, that you said this in answer to the question if they asked you were a Christian and were about to shoot you.
Of course not. And of course they're not going to put that down because, they have an objective. They are concerned about the fact that I'm rising and opposed. And believe me, they have been scratching the dirt everywhere looking for dirt. They cannot find any. They're getting desperate. So, this isn't the last time they're going to do this. They're going to take everything I say, try to reinterpret it, and try to make me seem like a demon. The problem is it doesn't seem to be working because people know what they're doing.
There was a headline on this article in the New York Times on the internet, not I believe in the printed version, I have both, which said that you said it was an unbelievable distortion of what you said, but that they used the word sanctity. Are you familiar with what I'm saying now? Where they said that you said that the Second Amendment is more sacred than human life.
No, of course I never said that.
I know that. I know you didn't, but that was the headline in one of the internet editions of their article on you.
Well, keep in mind, the left-wing press, the other day I was doing a press conference and I'm leaving on the way out to my bus and one reporter says, well, what are you going to do about the hurricane? And I just waved them off. I said, I don't know, I got to go. So the next day, they have a headline saying, Carson has no idea what to do about hurricanes. How can he be the president? Just complete dishonesty. But, that's what people are.
Wait a minute. You were asked, what would you do about a hurricane?
Yeah.
Well, then you got to admit the guy who asked it has a very high regard for you. I mean, let's be honest. I was never asked in my life what I would do about a hurricane. We'll be back in a moment. I'm talking to Dr. Ben Carson. His book of his ideas, A More Perfect Union, is up at DennisPrager.com. I'm speaking to Dr. Ben Carson, who, of course, needs no introduction. I'm going to talk to you on a human level for a second, as opposed to, just positional and philosophical and political. I have stated for my 33 years as a talk show host, I have stated over and over, I believe that the United States is not only not a racist country, I think it's the least racist country that has ever had multiple races living within it. In the course of your immersion with Americans of all backgrounds now, how do you react to my statement? Is it naive? Is it reaffirmed? How do you feel?
Well, I'm not sure I agree that there isn't a fair amount of racism here. There is, but it's not where you would expect it to be. It is mostly with the progressive movement, who will look at someone like me, and because of the color of my pigment, they decide that there's a certain way I'm supposed to think. And if I don't think that way, I'm an Uncle Tom, and they heap all kinds of hatred on you. That, to me, is racism. And
I couldn't agree with you more. You know what? I'm going to have to say from now on, it's the least racist country except for its progressive elite. No, I mean it. Yeah. I'm serious. I think that's exactly right.
And it is true that, race doesn't really keep you down in this country if you get a good education. You can get around all of the other things that might inhibit you. And, my mother, I guess, put it best when I was a youngster. She said, if you walk into an auditorium full of racist, bigoted people, you don't have a problem. They have a problem. She said, because they're going to all cringe and whether you're going to sit next to them, whereas you can go sit anywhere you want. And that's kind of the way I've led my life. If somebody else has a problem with that,
right.
They can have it, but I got more important things to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Let me tell you of a lament that I have and get your reaction. My listeners know of this. It is one of my deepest passions that people, Republicans and conservatives, often think that they are running against Barack Obama, or for that matter Hillary Clinton, or for that matter Joe Biden, or for that matter Nancy Pelosi. But they're all interchangeable in my view. The problem is left-wing ideology has corrupted our society. It has infected our universities. It has hurt our health care. It has hurt our government. Why aren't Republicans running against an ideology and not just people?
Well, I hope, when we have a nominee that they will, because this will be the most clear-cut decision that we've ever had. Are you going to go for a nation that is upformed by the people, or a nation that is upformed by the government? And, I don't necessarily want to demonize either one of those, but I want to say it's going to be a very clear-cut decision for the people to make.
What would you say the single greatest problem confronting America is, while standing on one foot, to use an old Talmudic phrase?
Well, there's a few that I can rattle off real quickly, and our divisiveness is very, very dangerous. A house divided against itself cannot stand, particularly when we have global jihadists who want to destroy us. The other thing is our incredible fiscal irresponsibility. It's a house of cards, and it's about to collapse. The only reason we can sustain a $200+ trillion fiscal gap is because we can print money, and we're doing that illegitimately. And there is a consequences for this kind of activity. And I think, we have a limited amount of time to rectify that. And then our failure to be proactive. We have an electric grid that is extremely vulnerable. we're not advancing the way we should be with cybersecurity, and we've neglected the space race. It cost us $77 million to send a man into space. A lot of innovation came out of the space race, including your cell phone. And in the future, he who controls space will control the Earth. And by us being lackadaisical in these areas, while others are advancing, we're putting ourselves at great jeopardy.
We have just a little time remaining. How would you deal with health care if we get rid of Obamacare?
Well, I would come up with the solution before we got rid of Obamacare, but utilizing health savings accounts, which we pay for with the same dollars that we use already. We spend twice as much per capita as most other nations, and yet have terrible access problems. With these health savings accounts, which are available from the time you're born to the time you die when you can pass them on, you also give people the flexibility to shift money in their HSA within their family. That makes every family essentially its own insurance company with no middleman. Gives you enormous flexibility and greatly drives down the cost of your catastrophic insurance, because the only thing coming out of that is catastrophic health care. How often do you have that? It's like a homeowner's policy with a big deductible versus one where you want every scratch covered, and you make it possible to buy it across state lines. That'll take care of most of the people. For the indigent, you utilize Medicaid dollars. We have a $400 to $500 billion Medicaid budget per year, and we have 80 million people participating. Now, that's way too many. There's no question about that, and we have to fix that by fixing the economy, which I have some ideas for as well. But let's deal with what we have. 80 million into 400 billion goes 5,000 times. What could you buy with that? A concierge practice. You know, concierge practices cost $2,000 to $3,000 a year, and you still have a couple thousand left over to buy your catastrophic insurance. Now, the nice thing is you give those to indigent people, and of course the Washington elites say they're too stupid, they wouldn't be able to handle it, but they said that about food stamps too. People learn. And they would learn very quickly not to go to the emergency room when they have that diabetic foot ulcer. They go to the clinic where it costs 5 times less. And not only that, but in the clinic, after they fix you up, they say, let's get your diabetes under control so you're not back here in 3 weeks with another major problem. A whole nother level of savings that we're not realizing. Plus, we're teaching them to be responsible instead of dependent.
Yep. So how did you feel you did in the last debate?
My goal was not to be a puppet and have people pulling your strings and say, sick 'em, because that's what they were doing. And I think that's total foolishness. Why would you even engage in that?
Fair enough. It's wonderful to talk to you again. You're an inspiration. Ben Carson, good luck.
Thank you. Always good to be with you.
Thank you.